tricky disco, 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 tricky disco, 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 tricky 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 disco, 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 disco. This is tricky. This is the tricky disco. Disco, disco. This is 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 tricky. Tricky disco. This is tricky. Tricky disco. This is tricky. Tricky disco. This is tricky.
This is discotronic.
Application error. The application has run out of memory. Now the system starts to reboot. Tricky disco, disco, disco. This is tricky disco, disco, tricky disco. This is tricky, this is tricky, this is tricky, tricky disco. This is tricky, this is tricky, this is tricky, this is tricky disco, 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 disco.
I just wanna dance in London. Just give me one night and the morning. Me and my girl gon' take over the dance floor. Take over the dance floor. I just wanna dance in London. Just give me one night and the morning. Me and my girl gon' take over the dance floor. Take over the dance floor.
Nice city, nice girl, nice ass. That girl I really won't smash. Got eyes, got hips, got class. Get in touch with a girl like that. Just walking down the door swing. Ain't nobody else can be over me. Let's have fun in the party and it's not like a paradise, the pleasures of mine.
Just wanna dance in London.
Now to remember can't be another city. Around the world girls are really looking pretty. Get a jigger with it, go na 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 na. Hit it one more time for pom pom pom. Together we can make this to remember. We bring the summer into December. Party grab, let's go, slam the disco. From London, Paris, San Francisco. DJ play that song and the move is on fire. To the early morning, that's what we desire. Let's go in higher, to the top, put your hands up in the lighter. Put up your lighters up once again. Put up your lighters, burn like a flame. Move your ass on the dance floor. Patrick Miller's back in the
Just wanna
game.
dance in London. Just give me one night and the morning. Me and my girl gon' take over the dance floor. Take over the dance floor. I just wanna dance in London. Just give me one night and the morning. Me and my girl gon' take over the dance floor. Take over the dance floor.
From London, Paris, San Francisco, San Francisco, San Francisco.